Recording in
We did it, everybody. We made it to the meeting. Great job. I know Blythe is joining as well. I'll give her a sec. I know that she has to hop off at 5:30, so we'll make the most of our time together while we're together. Sound good?
Yes.
Okay. So, we brought together this subcommittee to review and provide recommendations for updating the Park and Recreation Commission Constitution and Bylaws. Context behind why we thought now is a good time to do that. The original documents were created about 30 years ago. Since then, the internet was born, and here we all are on Zoom. So, considering that. Right now, the commission sort of has these long directionless meetings. Oftentimes we miss the focus on programming and community. So we wanted to try to see if there's a way to bring back that focus to the meetings. I know that we now have 2 meetings a month, so that should help. And maybe that's something we want to crystallize in the Constitution. It seems like there's not a lot of clarity in terms of the roles of the commissioners, the chair and the director, in terms of running meetings, communicating, collaborating. So perhaps there's an opportunity there to be more explicit about the roles and maybe enable the commissioners all to have subject-specific hats. And we're also a group of volunteers who manage a town employee and by proxy, actually a few employees, and whether or not that's the best way to move forward, especially since we're in a inflection point with getting a new director. Does that align with you 3 or 2?
Yeah, that's my expectation for the group.
Yes.
Okay.
I would think yes, the efficacy of this commission is important, and I think we should be able to do better than we're doing. And I think taking a look at the bylaws and the Constitution with the objectives of our commission is a good place to start.
Awesome. So the thought was that we could potentially have 3 sessions. The degree to which, the way I was thinking that this could work is we could start to address some questions that we might have about how we're working together, and then go back in between the sessions and look at the Constitution and the bylaws to see where our questions are explicitly addressed. And if they're not addressed, then maybe that's an opportunity for us to revise or add to the Constitution or the bylaws. Is that a good approach?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great. Hi, Blythe.
I couldn't find
That's
the
all right.
link. I'm so sorry.
Oh. I was just kind of just restating the charge of this subcommittee and some of the context behind why we're doing this, such as the Constitution's 30 years old. There's new modes of communication. We seem to have these long meetings that don't have a lot of direction. So if there's a way of addressing that, and there's not that much clarity about what the role is of the commission, the chair, the director, and also that we're managing town employees as a commission. We're a group of volunteers. So, do you all have any questions that you think we should be answering as we're looking at these documents?
I mean,
Well, I
one
think we should
Go ahead.
know exactly how, and I think it's laid out clearly how to change or add to the bylaws.
Mhm.
right? I mean, what kind of, authority do we have to, I'm assuming we're going to have to pass anything, any changes, anything new we come up with to, I don't know, the selectmen or who? I don't really know how that works. I was, I was struck by, I keep getting bogged down in the fact that, as Abigail said, we're a group of volunteers who are managing a town employee, and you look at the commissions that, if you voted recently, you're voting in your town employees, your, sewer commissioner and, people like this, but it seems backwards for Park and Rec, and I'd like to get to the bottom of that.
So that other commissions are voted on, who's on those commissions are voted on, and this one is not?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's all of the people who are voted onto the commission, but certainly as I'm sitting there voting for sewer commissioner, I'm wondering what's going on.
Yeah. I don't know the history, but we could dig into that. What's going on? Why certain positions are voted and not others.
So a lot of this goes back to the ordinance that's in section 10 of the town ordinances for Park and Rec.
And is that from when Park and Rec was founded 30 years ago, the commission?
Let's see.
Thanks, Jean, for joining and giving us
Sure.
this information.
Sure. There's a little bit of history at the bottom of most of the sections of the ordinance, and the history that's at the bottom of Park and Rec says adopted June 21st, 1963. So that section. Section 1 amended by town meeting dated October 7th, 1974. And section 1 has nothing in it. Then it says amended by town meeting April 1990 to add provision for alternates. Section 5 repealed, newly adopted at annual meeting May 20th, 2011. Section 5 is oh, that's about the alternates. So a little bit of history, but not super detailed or helpful.
So
I mean,
not really.
I'm looking at Article 3 of the bylaws, I guess, and it says the Park and Recreation Commission of the Town of Kent shall consist of 6 members, each of whom shall be an electorate of the town. And none of whom shall hold any salaried municipal office. The membership of said commission shall be appointed by the Board of Selectmen within 30 days of the effective date of the ordinance. At the annual town meeting, there will be 2 elected members of the commission to serve for a term of 3 years. I don't know. So none of us is an electorate of the, each of whom shall be an electorate. What does that mean? That means
that
we
you're
live in the town. We live
yeah.
in the town. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. There you go. That's the.
It says here in the Article X amendments of the Constitution that the Constitution, Michael, this is to your question, the Constitution may be amended at any regular or special meeting by a quorum of those members present and voting, providing notice of the proposed amendment has been given in writing to all commissioners. The director of Park and Rec at least 7 days prior to the meeting. So I take it that
Yep.
we have we have it's open to being amended. It just needs to be clear what the amendments are. And there's a week ahead. And then there's a meeting.
Yeah, so that is our end goal for this committee, is to make it to that process essentially.
That's the goal.
Okay.
So, do we know at all if there are other boards and commissioners or commissions in the town that manage a town employee? If not,
Yeah, I think this is the only, the P&Z there is flexibility for them to, hang on one second, to employ their clerk, I believe. I think the P&Z can go direct and work with the land use administrator. I'm just looking in that ordinance. It's here. Yeah, it's going to take me a second to find this. Is Joyce still on?
no, but we could also just have some questions that we're trying to answer,
Sure.
and maybe
Yeah, instead of sitting here while I read.
that's okay. No, I cannot say thanks enough for joining and having the documents and reading through them. It's very helpful.
I guess one question I have that I wasn't able to figure out from reading the two documents you shared was, where is the implied or explicit language that says we can't do business over email?
So that's actually FOI, Freedom of Information Act, which
Okay.
is a statute. And
Okay.
we're going to, I'll probably in the next couple of days be sending out a constant contact, and all of the chairs of the commissions and boards in town will get an email announcing that we're going to do a Zoom FOI sort of chat with Tom Hennick, who is the education person at the Connecticut FOI office, and Randy DeBella, our town council. Cornwall did one about a week and a half ago, and we're going to basically do a twin to that, because there's just a lot of questions that folks have about FOI, and we have a lot of new people, and FOI can be a little complex. So that'll be coming up on December 2nd.
So Jean, so that means that other groups in town governments are having the same issue. Is that what?
Well, there's been, with the pandemic, there were over 100 executive orders that came out, and they were, they started to get repealed and changed, and then some of them started to expire. So things started to get a little bit just not hazy, but complex. Mm-hmm. And there was then legislation that was passed over the summer, Public Act 21-2 of the special June session, that sort of wrapped all of those executive orders up, but not everything, into legislative language that will become law, that is law. And it involves having hybrid meetings, having electronic meetings, having in-person meetings. And so there's just it's sort of a hydra. And there's a lot of questions. There was a question about a Board of Finance meeting. They met in person last night, and there was a member who because he has a relative who is high risk, wanted to have a Zoom option. And so
Yeah.
it ended up, we found out that that members can actually, members within a board or commission they have two options to engage in a meeting that doesn't also have to be a public access. So last night or yesterday, a Zoom link was generated for that member, and it turned out a couple of other members preferred Zoom. And so a few of the members attended via Zoom and a few attended in person, and that is lawful under FOI.
Mhm.
So that's new. I've been reading that FOI Act for years and I never saw that. So again, that's another, sort of
Right.
wrinkle uniqueness. So that and because there's a lot of new commissioners and board members across all of the different boards and commissions, I just thought it would be a good idea to have that, opportunity.
Yeah, I've only ever been, I still think I'm brand new. So I've never known this commission other than on Zoom. And I can't help but wonder if we would get more done if we met in person. And because there's that sort of immediacy of all being in the same room together that I find frustrating on Zoom. I'm sure, I know this is problem globally. But then again, we are also getting used to it at the same time. So that was definitely on my list. Like, how can we all get back into the same room together? But then again, if we're going to have 24 meetings over the course of a year, that's a lot of trips to town hall too. So, and the email thing I find really frustrating, because I feel like we are just sort of stuck in the mud until we all are with each other again. And I feel that there has to be a way. Can the emails be public, or can we communicate in such a way over email that, once or twice a month it's made public for everybody to see our emails or something like that, so that we can move the ball a little bit better than we have in the past.
Yeah, so
And I'll note that I've been reading minutes of other Parks and Rec in our community, and other Parks and Rec do vote over email, and they do discuss planning logistics over email. So I'm not sure why that's happening, but it does make for a much more efficient process to be able to use email for communication, if nothing more than to update the commissioners if you have something to update them with.
And that is one of the topics where we've asked Tom and Randy to just address and clarify for everybody. And it's pretty it's pretty clear in the FOI Act. And it has less to do with actual emailing and more to do with what constitutes a meeting. And what constitutes a meeting, I happen to have the definition sitting here in front of me, is a quorum of the members of a public agency who are present at any event which has been noticed and conducted as a meeting of another public agency. So if you're emailing back and forth as a commission, right? So somebody says, hey, we need a new widget for the, Hinkle Hollow recreational pond. What do you guys think of these 3 widgets? And an email thread starts with, people giving feedback or opining or saying, oh, I found this other widget that I think is less expensive and it will be better and it's safer. And then the chair says, okay, let's everybody vote in over email. You're conducting an illegal meeting, which is in violation of the FOI Act. So it's less about email and more about, are you holding an illegal meeting? Which is, and I don't know who who would in another town who would be doing that over email. I don't want to know. But I do know that it's in violation, definitely in violation of the Freedom of Information Act.
Bummer.
Yeah, so it's it causes, can be very frustrating. And it definitely causes, a shift in thinking of how you're conducting business. And it really goes back to, okay, we're conducting business at these 2 meetings a month. And so we need to make the best of these 2 meetings a month. And it's, sort of reconnoitering your brain and probably most of your, experience and interaction, whether it's in business or other organizations that do this all the time. And sort of living in that new space of, if we're conducting business at a warned official meeting of the body. Inconvenient, absolutely.
But if, for instance, if Julia and Mike have things to say to each other about the tennis program, and they can make decisions about what's going on with the tennis program. What am I trying to say? I mean, if things can go ahead without all of us having to be part of the conversation, that would be super great. I think we're going to get to the point where I think we're going to talk about subcommittees, which I think is a really great idea. But if that just makes everything more complicated, because then you have to have public meetings of the subcommittees, and then does that even further complicate the process?
Sure.
Well,
And
I think, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Blythe.
I was just going to say, I think, part of the reason that I thought that this was a good subcommittee to form is because I felt personally, I don't want to speak for other people, but I felt personally that it was super frustrating to have all of these meetings where we completely bogged down in any kind of decision making. I think it was difficult. Leslie and Lynn had it down. They had their process, and we lost Leslie before we could bring in Miranda. I think Miranda was pretty visibly frustrated sometimes that she couldn't make a move or a decision without us voting on it. And to me, it's about, can we find a way to give more authority to either a subcommittee or to the director of Parks and Rec to make decisions and carry out their duties without these constant meetings and votes? Because that, to me, is where this bubbled up from. This subcommittee, to me, came out because we were all sitting there on these 2.5 hour long meetings, feeling like we couldn't get anything done. We couldn't take a vote on it now. We had to have another special meeting, or we couldn't do this because we needed this. And as soon as we got this information, then we all needed to convene again. So I think the Park and Rec is responsible for so much stuff. I'm not even sure that some of the stuff that we're responsible for is logical, but there are so many things. It is so far reaching that it seems to me incongruous to not have somebody sitting at town hall who can actually talk to the people in town hall, being able to make a decision about billing or something like that, without having to wait for a scheduled meeting or call a special meeting. So that, to me, is what I would really like to see coming out of this. Is there any way that we can give more responsibility to a director? Because again, I think we're looking for a director. Miranda would have been a fantastic director, but I'm sure that part of the reason that she just wasn't interested, I don't want to speak for her either, but because I haven't talked to her about it, but is that she really couldn't move. She was stuck. And I think as we look for a new director, we want to be able to give them some assurances about what they can do what their real responsibility is, and whether or not they're just kind of a puppet responsible to a group of people who only meet once or twice a month. That was long-winded, and I'm sorry.
No, well
Thank you.
said.
You make a great point, and it's what's a director directing if they're not allowed to direct anything?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the way that I look at the Constitution, it looks like the director is a clerk.
Yeah.
And this may be why I remember at some meeting way back, well, I don't even know when it was, in the haze, someone suggested that we should look at the directorship position about whether or not it was really a full-time position, or whether or not we really needed a director, or could it be a part-time position, or just a clerk position. But I think we need a director because we joined a group, not because we wanted to necessarily dictate all the stuff. I mean, we've got full-time jobs. I don't see a director without responsibility or any sort of power or decision-making power being a director.
Yeah.
That's in name.
So we probably need to amend what the decision, we need to be specific about decision-making power of the director, and when to come to the when to come to the committee.
Mhm.
And I know we talked about this at some point, that the committee is the committee here to provide advisement to the director to make decisions? And when is it needed for the committee to make a vote?
Right. I mean, if you look at Article 7 of the Constitution, it says that the Director of Parks and Recreation duties are to supervise and maintain the recreational activities set forth by the commission, and to pursue new activities which enhance the general program as directed by the commission. So this clearly has a, this person is at the mercy of the commission, is what I'm reading here. They have no real responsibility. I think we need to drill in on that.
And this is maybe a subject for another time, but what I hear us talking about so much on this commission is maintenance of the parks. And nowhere I didn't read that maintenance anywhere on this in this paperwork. And I would love us to talk about that aspect of the Parks and Rec job, and whether or not it's appropriate for us to be responsible for maintenance, but that's just
How that happened.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot in there that, I don't understand why we're responsible for the school fields, for example. I don't understand why we are responsible for the staffing of the after-school program. I mean, that's not a park. To me, it's not town recreation, it's babysitting.
Mhm.
I don't know how that fell there. I know we did at one point, we had responsibility for the senior lunch program or something, which did get shifted, I think, to social services, which was good. But I'd like to look at that. What are the things that we are responsible for? And are there, I think part of the reason we got into the ASP thing with Kent Center School, or, Kent Center School is hampering our ability to put something forward about a basketball program. Well, why? Why is the headache fall on us? I don't know. So
So it might help going back. So when you talk about these foundation documents, it's a pretty linear and sequential sort of org chart. And it starts with the statutes, obviously. Starts with federal law, and then it comes down to the Connecticut General Statutes, and then within that, if there are any relevant state regulations, which there are some, and then from there it's ordinance, and then the foundation documents of the body. So in reading the ordinance, the very first section, it says all lands which have been designated for park or recreation purposes in the town of Kent, except those maintained in conjunction with the public schools, and all lands hereafter acquired for park or recreation purposes shall be under the management, care, and control of a commission under the name of Park and Recreation Commission. So that's sort of the high level, like where you start from, that may help guide you in some of these questions that I'm hearing. Because from here, then the Constitution and bylaws get into further detail. And I'm not sure, it might be a question for our town attorney. I'm not sure both the Constitution and bylaws are needed. P&Z has bylaws which govern the commission, right? The work of the commission, the makeup of the commission. And then there's the P&Z regulations, which deal with the land use, the specifics, but they don't have a constitution and bylaws per se. In my experience, usually a constitution is, that's the sort of very baseline document for a standalone body. Like Kent Volunteer Fire Department has a constitution. It's very basic. This is the mission. This is when they were founded. These are the officers. This is who the officers are. There's a fire chief, there's an ambulance chief, there's captains, etc. And it doesn't lay out a lot of detail. So your constitution would be broad, then your bylaws get a little bit more detailed. And in this case, I'm not sure that you would need both. But it's certainly a question that we could ask out to town council. He's municipal attorney for multiple other towns, so he would also have, could give his opinion on what his other towns have as well. Just another thought.
Jean, in what you just read to us,
Mhm.
that was the document you're reading to us is the ordinance for the town. What's the document
Yes.
you're reading?
Yep. So
Okay,
the town of Kent ordinances, and I can shoot that in an email out to the group.
Thanks. And then within that, it did say that the commission oversees the maintenance of certain areas. But I think what you just said was it doesn't include anything within the public school.
Yeah, so I'll read it again, and it's, what, let me grab it and I'll put it in. Oh, you know what? I can put it up on a screen share.
Yeah. Ooh.
Give me a second.
Because that might get to the playing field issue.
Possibly. Let me think here. Alrighty. Okay, so here we are. Can everybody see that on my screen? So just a 30-second primer. So covers, it's the whole town's ordinances. So covers a lot of different topics, as you see. And parks and recreation are chapter 10. So that's the significantly bigger. Can you guys read that now? So that's that first little subsection.
Yep, and this is who's a part of it.
Right, yep.
At each annual town meeting, there shall be appointed only so many electors as members of the commission to bring the number of the So that's when we have new people that want to become commissioners, we bring those people, it sounds like the commission votes on whether or not we want them to be a part of the commission. And then we bring it to the selectmen and say, here's our recommendations for new commissioners.
And then at the next annual town meeting, it gets, they have to be voted in. No, appointed, I'm sorry. Hold on. I think they're appointed, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's happened before. I seem to remember being asked by Leslie and Lynn if, we were all re-upping. And it was before the January meeting where they had to take our names to the selectmen.
Right, and so in the in-between time, the commission shall have the right to appoint persons to fill the vacancy until the next town meeting.
And every seat has there's term limits, if you will, to how long a commissioner can be on the commission. Like you're appointed for 4 years or 2 years, right, Blythe? Do you remember? That's.
Yeah, I think there is a term if you're starting at the end of someone else's term, but a lot of us are on there having filled a position that was vacated in the middle of a term. I can't remember if the term is 3 years or I think it's 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, not more than 3 years. So yeah, but I think a lot of us came on because we were filling spots. So some of us have, joined later, but are actually our term is the first, the term is up for, I don't know if it says how many times you can re-up. But there was a list somewhere that I found relatively recently about when everybody's term ends were, but.
Yeah, so on the Town of Kent website.
Maybe that was where it was.
Let's see. Can you all still see?
Yeah. I'm just perplexed why it's 6. The numbers,
Members?
an even number doesn't make sense for voting.
Yeah, I don't know. So here's the list and then the term expiration.
Oh yeah, we can't see we're just seeing the PDF of the ordinance.
Oh, right, because
It's
the
okay.
share is very specific.
Yeah.
So if you just browse to the townofkentct.org, hover over boards and commissions and go to the Park and Rec, it comes up with a list of all the members and it shows what their term is and if they're a member or an alternate and when the term expires. Just in a simple table.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to keep scrolling down in this.
Yeah, do you mind?
Not at all.
Like I can, you don't have to do this. I guess I have another. Well,
so there are in the ordinance, there are certain things that speak to the decision-making of the commission. So the commission may establish such fees and charges for use of its facilities as it deems necessary or proper, which fees shall be paid to the town treasurer for deposit in the general fund. So that sort of trickles down into what's the commission responsible, what are the decision-making for the commission versus what could be tasked out to the director on a more day-to-day function.
I mean, Jean, do you think the director would fall under that section 10.3, number 1? The commission can employ such persons as it deems necessary and shall prescribe and define the duties and define their compensation. I mean, is that something where that would give us the kind of the elbow room to start giving some of that responsibility to the director, or would we be overstepping there?
Well, I mean, it says it's specific to the commission shall prescribe and define the duties of the employees. The compensation, so it going back up to the Connecticut General Statutes, the Board of Selectmen is the hiring authority. So within the appropriations provided for in the budget, so the commission presents that budget to the larger budget. And the board of selectmen would be, they have to make sure that the commission, whoever the commission recommends as the best candidate for the director, that, you know, they're going to check the boxes of, is the compensation within the appropriation that's been budgeted? Hopefully, yes. So I hope, does that make sense? So there are things that I think could guide you in the review and reimagining of Constitution and bylaws that come from the ordinance.
Mhm.
So I think it makes sense for us to, you know, I think we've been starting to put together a list of the things we want to be looking at to either do or change or institute. Once we get that list together, then we can really carefully review this document, which is going to be hugely helpful, I think, and the Constitution and the bylaws to see if we need, first of all, a Constitution and bylaws, and where we find language in here relative to the things that we're, that we've been charged to, or at least our charge is to review these things, but that we would like to do for the benefit of the commission and the town.
Yeah.
And then just to briefly scroll through the rest of this, the section 10.5, which it's weird because it's right at the bottom of the page, but this whole section on the next page is about the alternates, and then just the dedicated parkland. I think that's it. Yeah, and then it goes into planning zone.
Subcommittee, is it helpful to have these things as a Word doc? I know I cleaned up the Constitution. I don't even know if you have the one that I actually finalized. So it's something you can highlight and engage with rather than the PDF. Is that helpful?
I think if we're going to make changes, it's to be able to have a Word doc or a Google doc, if everybody has Google, to be able to comment. We shouldn't just dive in and start making changes. We should be able to comment and look at that stuff. I know that Abigail, I guess you retyped from a PDF so that you could get all this stuff. I think there's a program that'll take a PDF and turn it into a Word doc or a Google doc.
Yeah,
like
so I have
program.
Miranda kindly, before she moved on, ran it through some program and it came out okay, but there was still a ton of formatting and spelling issues. So I went through it and basically I had to type the thing up again. Yeah. But if there's something, Jean, that the town has, certainly would save me time.
Yeah, I can push the whichever one that hasn't been converted. I can convert it with Adobe Acrobat DC.
Okay.
You sometimes do get erroneous characters. It sort of depends. If it started out as a digital document, it'll be nice and clean and you'll get exactly what was in the PDF. If it started out as a scanned document, so it's basically taking a picture, converting the picture into recognizable alphabetic and numeric characters, and then formatting. That's where the breakdown is. And I've never seen a tool that will make that magic happen, but I can certainly do a quick conversion and send you it in Microsoft Word or Google Doc, whichever you prefer.
I think these are JPEG images for some reason. They were created 30 years ago. So
yeah,
I don't.
Well, the good news is that the stuff, at least, I think it would be good for us to have the entire ordinance for the town, the whole document. But, the park and rec specific stuff, there's not that much. So if we really needed to type that, at least we could
Well, that did start out as a digital document, and the ordinance is only changeable via town meeting, and it would need to go through the.
Yeah,
board.
I think it would be good for us to have it just so we can look at it for the other commissions as well, just and just
Sure.
read it, but yeah, but if you can, I mean, we would never dive into any other part of it except our part, but if you can either take the Park and Rec stuff out and turn that into something that we can play around with and give us the other one as a PDF, whatever you'd like to do, Jean, that makes you feel confident that you're kind of protecting the security of the ordinance. That would be helpful.
Okay, and was it the Constitution or the bylaws document that you wanted converted?
The bylaws, it would be great. I've converted the Constitution, so the bylaws would be super helpful.
Okay.
And then once I get it all, I'll make sure I'll put it as a Google Doc and make sure you all have access to it so we can work together.
I've got to run my board is waiting for me at the Fife.
Thank you, Blythe.
But I'll look forward to next steps.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Have fun.
So what I have right now is we need to address whether or not we need both Constitution and bylaws. Basically we have to figure out what we want to change. And Jean's going to convert a part of the ordinance and a part of and all of the bylaws. And then once we have that, I'll share links with you so you can review it. I think some other things that we want to try to understand is, clarifying the role of the chair. What are they responsible for, and whether any member of the commission can become the chair. And I think we've already started addressing some other questions that we had. So moving in the right direction, Kate.
Yeah,
Any
no,
thoughts?
I agree. The things that I wrote down, the email, general maintenance issues, establish standing subcommittees, possibly enlarge this group of people because we are volunteers. Do we need a bigger group? Yeah, those are and then of course, the duties of the director is, I think, really the meat of the matter.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to have some concrete examples from the past 6 months of where we, felt like maybe we weren't as effective as a committee, and because of that, this happened, and how, we're presenting this as a way to avoid that, instead of, just coming off as us like complaining about long meetings, which is a worthwhile, reason to improve things. But I do think in the past year there were some kind of heavy things that fell on our shoulders that we, were a little hamstrung by, that I think would be a persuasive for an outsider to look at and understand why we're trying to make changes.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any examples right now while we're together?
So I guess I'm thinking of and I'm putting these out there, and maybe when we flesh it out, we'll realize that they aren't good examples. But not having a Camp Kent, the on and off of the after school program, maintenance issues that were presented as potential liability issues, like the washout at Kent Commons, and some issues with the trail. Those are kind of the big ones on the top of mind.
Yeah, and the pool.
And the pool.
I would say also just the locks on the tennis courts.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Jean gave us a ton of information about things we should have thought about when we made that decision, and we just didn't have that broad perspective. Without Blythe, do you want to, should we meet again when all of us are together?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate all your time. I'm not like the leader. We're leading this together, so.
Well, I'm
I just
I'm
came
a-
up with the idea.
I'm a happy typer. If you need help with any typing, I know we're going to try to just use the computer, but if you need help with typing stuff, I'm happy to do that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I retyped the whole Constitution. I just have to find it. If I don't find it, I may ask for some
Yeah,
support
no,
there,
that's
so I don't have to do it
happy,
again.
happy to
Thanks.
put my 5th grade typing class to good use. I don't regret it after all these years. I don't regret it.
All we do is type. At least it's all I do.
Yeah. There are some days where I feel like that's all I do.
Okay, then I guess we'll
Someone
meet
should make a
after
motion.
Thanksgiving. Do you want to meet after Thanksgiving? I don't think we'll. I think we have a little homework to do before we meet again. Does that work for you? You both?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fine.
The first week of December. Okay.
Yeah,
Same time of the week, 5:30 Thursday.
works for me.
All right. I'll
That's
see
good.
if it works for Blythe.
Someone should make a motion to adjourn the meeting, so you do it officially. And then I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn the subcommittee meeting.
Second.
Second.
Yes, Michael, since you made the motion, why don't you ask for a vote? Since there's no,
So any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
The